For more than 5,000 years, China has survived floods, invasions, civil wars, revolutions, and the rise and fall of powerful dynasties. It created writing systems, philosophies, inventions, and trade routes that changed the world. But how did scattered farming communities become one of history's most influential civilizations? The story begins beside two great rivers, the Yellow River in the north and the Yangtze in the south. Their fertile valleys supported millet and rice farming, allowing permanent settlements to grow. Yet the same rivers that gave life could also destroy entire communities through catastrophic floods. Chinese tradition credits a legendary figure called Yu the Great with controlling those floods. Rather than simply blocking the water, Yu supposedly created channels that guided it toward the sea. Whether entirely historical or partly mythical, his story represented an important idea. A ruler earned authority by protecting the people. Yu became associated with the Xia, traditionally regarded as China's first dynasty. Evidence for the Xia remains debated, but the dynasty became central to China's origin story. It also introduced a pattern that would define Chinese politics for millennia, power passing through a ruling family. Around 1600 BCE, the Shang emerged as the first Chinese dynasty supported by extensive written and archaeological evidence. Shang rulers commanded armies, built fortified cities, produced extraordinary bronze objects, and consulted ancestors through inscriptions carved into animal bones and turtle shells. These oracle bones contain early forms of Chinese characters. They record questions about harvests, battles, weather, illness, and royal births. Through them, historians can hear the concerns of people who lived more than 3,000 years ago and trace the distant origins of China's written tradition. In 1046 BCE, the Zhou defeated the Shang. They justified their victory through the mandate of heaven, the belief that heaven allowed a just ruler to govern, but could withdraw its support from a corrupt dynasty. From then on, rebellion could be presented not merely as treason, but as proof that a ruler had failed. The Zhou ruled longer than any other Chinese dynasty, but their authority gradually weakened. Regional lords became increasingly independent, turning the realm into competing states. Warfare intensified, yet this political breakdown also produced one of the most creative intellectual periods in Chinese history. Confucius taught that social order began with ethical behavior, education, duty, and respect within families and government. Taoist thinkers emphasized harmony with nature and the effortless way. Legalists argued that peace required strong rulers, strict laws, and severe punishments. All three traditions would shape China's future. By the 5th century BCE, rivalry had become the warring states period. Kingdoms built larger armies, developed iron weapons, improved agriculture, and fought for survival. Eventually, the western state of Qin gained the advantage through disciplined administration, military reform, and ruthless efficiency. In 221 BCE, the king of Qin defeated his final rivals and declared himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. For the first time, the competing kingdoms were united under one centralized state. He standardized weights, measures, currency, roads, and writing, making administration across the empire far easier. The first emperor also connected and expanded defensive walls along China's northern frontier, creating early foundations of what later became the Great Wall. Massive palaces, roads, canals, and his famous terracotta army displayed imperial power. But these projects demanded exhausting labor and heavy taxes. Qin rule was harsh. Books were destroyed, dissent was suppressed, and punishments were severe. The dynasty collapsed only a few years after the first emperor's death, yet its political structure survived. Even the name China is often linked to Qin, the short-lived dynasty that created the imperial model. The Han dynasty rose in 206 BCE under Liu Bang, a man of humble origins who defeated his rivals after the fall of Qin. Han rulers kept centralized government, but softened some of its harshest features. They promoted Confucian learning and built a professional bureaucracy selected increasingly through education. Under Emperor Wu, Han territory expanded deep into Central Asia. Trade routes connected China with distant markets, forming the network later called the Silk Road. Chinese silk traveled west, while horses, glass, religions, technologies, and new ideas moved in both directions. The Han Age saw major progress in paper production, astronomy, engineering, medicine, and historical writing. But court rivalries, powerful landowners, taxation, and peasant hardship weakened the dynasty. Rebellions spread, generals gained independent power, and in 220 CE the Han Empire finally collapsed. China then entered centuries of division. The three kingdoms fought for supremacy, followed by short reunifications and new fragmentation. Northern China was ruled by competing states, many founded by non-Han peoples, while southern courts preserved older traditions. War was frequent, but cultures also mixed. Buddhism expanded dramatically during this divided era. Monasteries, cave temples, translations, and new schools of thought transformed Chinese religion and art. The faith arrived from India and Central Asia, but over time it developed distinctly Chinese forms that would influence Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. In 589, the Sui dynasty reunited China. Although it lasted less than 40 years, it rebuilt centralized rule and created the Grand Canal, linking the grain-producing south with the political north. The project strengthened the empire, but forced labor, taxation, and failed wars triggered rebellion. The Tang replaced the Sui in 618 and created one of China's most celebrated golden ages. Its capital, Chang'an, became one of the world's largest and most cosmopolitan cities. Merchants, diplomats, monks, and travelers arrived from across Asia, bringing foreign religions, clothing, music, and food. Tang power reached far into Central Asia, while poetry, painting, scholarship, and printing flourished. Empress Wu Zetian became the only woman to rule China in her own name. Yet frontier wars and the devastating An Lushan rebellion weakened the state, and the dynasty fell in 907. After another period of division, the Song dynasty reunified much of China in 960. Militarily, the Song often struggled against powerful northern neighbors. Economically and technologically, however, the period was extraordinary. Cities expanded, markets flourished, and a sophisticated commercial society emerged. Song China advanced movable-type printing, navigation with the magnetic compass, improved farming, and gunpowder weapons. Paper money circulated on a large scale. Education expanded through the civil service examinations, creating a class of scholar officials trained in Confucian texts and state administration. But the Song could not stop the rise of the Mongols. Under Genghis Khan and his successors, Mongol armies conquered enormous territories across Eurasia. Kublai Khan completed the conquest of China in 1279 and founded the Yuan dynasty, ruling China as part of a wider Mongol world. The Yuan connected China more directly with trade routes stretching toward the Middle East and Europe. Foreign merchants and travelers arrived in greater numbers, including Marco Polo. Yet heavy taxation, ethnic divisions, natural disasters, and rebellion gradually undermined Mongol authority. In 1368, rebel leader Zhu Yuanzhang drove the Mongols from the capital and founded the Ming dynasty. The Ming restored native Chinese rule, strengthened administration, rebuilt sections of the Great Wall, and transformed Beijing into an imperial capital centered on the newly constructed Forbidden City. Early in the Ming period, Admiral Zheng He led enormous fleets through Southeast Asia and across the Indian Ocean. His voyages displayed Chinese wealth and power as far away as East Africa. Later rulers ended these expeditions and placed greater emphasis on internal stability and defending the northern frontier. Ming China became a center of global trade. European demand for silk and porcelain brought huge quantities of silver into the empire. But corruption, financial crisis, climate disruption, famine, peasant rebellion, and attacks from the Manchus combined to bring the dynasty down in 1644. The Manchus established the Qing, China's final imperial dynasty. Through military campaigns and alliances, Qing rulers created a vast multi-ethnic empire including Tibet, Xinjiang, Mongolia, Manchuria, and Taiwan. During the 18th century, China possessed one of the world's largest populations and economies. Yet the Qing government tightly controlled European trade through the port of Canton. Britain purchased enormous quantities of Chinese tea, silk, and porcelain, but China bought relatively few British goods. To reverse this imbalance, British merchants expanded the illegal sale of opium in China. When Qing officials attempted to suppress the drug trade, Britain responded with modern naval power. The First Opium War ended in 1842 with a Chinese defeat, unequal treaties, new trading ports, and the transfer of Hong Kong. A second war brought further concessions and exposed the empire's military weakness. At the same time, China faced a catastrophic internal uprising. The Taiping Rebellion, led by Hong Xiuquan, captured large areas of southern China and established a rival state. Years of warfare, famine, and disease killed tens of millions before Qing forces finally crushed the rebellion in 1864. Defeat by Japan in 1895 delivered another shock. Reformers demanded modernization, while anti-foreign anger fueled the Boxer Uprising. An international coalition intervened and imposed further penalties. By the early 20th century, many Chinese people believed the imperial system could no longer save the country. In 1911, revolution ended more than 2,000 years of imperial rule. Sun Yat-sen became the symbolic father of the new republic, but political unity remained elusive. Regional warlords controlled territory, governments rose and fell, and competing movements struggled to define China's future. Two forces eventually dominated: the Nationalist Party, or Kuomintang, and the Chinese Communist Party. They sometimes cooperated, but soon became enemies. Under Chiang Kai-shek, the nationalists attempted to reunify the country and violently suppressed communists in cities such as Shanghai. Mao Zedong believed China's rural peasants, not only urban workers, could drive a communist revolution. Surrounded by nationalist forces, the communists escaped during the Long March of 1934 and 1935. The journey was disastrous, but the survivors became the core of a hardened revolutionary movement. Japan's invasion transformed the conflict. Beginning in 1937, Chinese cities were bombed, occupied, and subjected to terrible atrocities. Nationalists and communists formed an uneasy alliance against Japan, but both prepared for the civil war they expected to resume when the foreign enemy was defeated. After Japan surrendered in 1945, civil war returned. The communists gained support in much of the countryside, while nationalist forces suffered from corruption, inflation, and declining morale. In 1949, Mao proclaimed the People's Republic of China. Chiang Kai-shek's government retreated to Taiwan. The new communist government redistributed land, expanded education, improved basic health care, and brought the country under strong central control. But political campaigns punished perceived enemies, and Mao's attempt to accelerate industrial and agricultural production led to the Great Leap Forward. The Great Leap reorganized rural society into communes and imposed unrealistic production targets. Local officials concealed failure, while grain continued to be collected. The result was a catastrophic famine between 1959 and 1961, causing many millions of deaths and forcing Mao to step back temporarily. In 1966, Mao launched the Cultural Revolution to revive revolutionary ideology and defeat his political rivals. Young Red Guards attacked officials, teachers, traditions, and historical sites. Schools and institutions were disrupted, families were divided, and the country endured a decade of political chaos. After Mao died in 1976, Deng Xiaoping emerged as China's most influential leader. He kept Communist Party control, but introduced market reforms, opened special economic zones, encouraged foreign investment, and allowed private enterprise. China began one of the fastest economic transformations in history. Economic growth changed hundreds of millions of lives, but political reform remained limited. In 1989, students and workers gathered in Beijing and other cities demanding accountability and greater freedom. The government imposed martial law and forcibly ended the Tiananmen Square demonstrations. During the following decades, China became the world's manufacturing center and joined the World Trade Organization. Cities expanded at extraordinary speed, infrastructure transformed the landscape, and the country lifted enormous numbers of people from poverty, while inequality, pollution, and censorship also grew. Under Xi Jinping, who became China's top leader in 2012, the Communist Party strengthened its control over politics, technology, media, and society. China expanded its global influence through trade, investment, military modernization, and the Belt and Road Initiative, while relations with Western powers became more tense. Today, China is both an ancient civilization and a modern superpower. Its history reveals a repeating struggle between unity and division, openness and isolation, reform and control. Dynasties disappeared, but the desire for stability, central authority, and national strength continued to shape the country. From the Yellow River settlements to the world's second-largest economy, China's journey was never a simple story of uninterrupted rise. It was built through invention and exchange, but also conflict, disaster, and reinvention. The next chapter will affect not only China, but the future of the entire world.